My volume is off. Welcome back to the CONVO couch, ladies and gentlemen. I am Pasta Jardula.
And I'm Fiorella.
I'm sorry if I'm lacking a little bit of energy today. I know I'm a little tired. I had to work doubles. The fam and I had to work doubles yesterday on Mother's Day. So for all those mothers out there that we took care of, we hope you had a great time and it was your day and blessed to you. Anyways, we're going to have a great show today. We want you to come on in and jump on in. If you get a chance, go ahead and share this link right down below. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube. If you're not on our YouTube, please go on over to our YouTube and like, share, and subscribe. Same thing with the Facebook. Go back and forth. We also have a Twitter that fam likes to get savage on. If you don't have Fee's Twitter, go ahead and join her Twitter. All the information is listed down below over there, and you can just click on. And if you have a few bucks to spare, help us out. Patreon. Be a patron. And eventually we're going to get everybody some T-shirts, all our Patreons. We know. Hold on in there, Rocky Bellinger and all the folks who are our Patreons. We love you, Perry the Bernie bro. But what we're going to do is we're going to wait for people to trickle on in. And we're in Westeros, so the...
we are in Westeros. And Pasta is... Yeah. We're just double-checking your mic, Johnny. Is his mic okay? I got word it's a little low.
He's not speaking as loud as he
Oh, interesting.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Why do you keep trying to silence him, man? They silence
men. Let's talk
Stop
about...
silencing men.
No, let's talk about... we have a lot of things to talk about, but silencing men isn't one of them. Okay, we're just waiting for, we're just sharing a little bit because we didn't have our intro music today. Give us some time. So again, please share. And if you are on the YouTube, which is amazing if you are, subscribe and hit the little bell. All right. You want to get started?
Dude, it's just not letting me share into groups.
Yeah, the Facebook isn't letting us share in a lot of places. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Can we just be done with Facebook somehow? I mean, like, I know we need them. We have a lot of fans and followers out there on Facebook. We still get a ton of views, and we appreciate it. But if you get a chance, go click onto our YouTube. Yeah. We need help on our YouTubes. Is that how they say it nowadays?
No, it's just YouTube. There's no S.
But if we have, like, several YouTubes, can't we say YouTubes? Because we're on the MCSC network sometimes, right? Anyways, let's talk, because we had a crazy savage night last night, fam. You were all fired up. We got one more episode. You were fired up.
I wasn't the only one that was fired up. Okay, so...
we paused this to have talks in the middle of this episode.
Because it's so relatable to our politics. So, first of all, disclaimer, there are going to be some spoilers discussed here. If you haven't seen...
don't watch
the episode. Don't watch the first half of the show. You can watch the second half. But, basically, a lot of people on Twitter and all over social media are really upset with last night's episode, which happened to be my favorite, actually. And I feel like this is the most relatable episode, and everything makes sense in comparison to before, where I just felt like it was lacking a lot of structure and a lot of, like, I don't know, just it was lacking in general. And a lot of people were actually upset, saying, I can't believe this whole entire story arc they've been developing has been, like, ruined in one episode. Daenerys, a lot of people were upset about Daenerys' actions, and I don't know, they were just really upset. So
Jump the shark was the term I heard a lot.
Yeah, that's
like the dragon getting killed really quick, and them just kind of doing this stuff. They felt like, a lot of people told me that when it came to Game of Thrones, that they took their time for most of the series. And at this particular situation with the 6 episodes, they had situations where they just sped things up so quickly, like you just jumped a shark there just to change everything. But then last night was I don't know what you can classify. Man, it was just like eye-opening.
That's because people are missing the point. Like, they're missing the point. Like, this is exactly what's so relatable to our politics. So let's start with this quote from Varys, who always said he looked out for people. He said, men decide where power resides.
Like, men decide where power resides, whether or not they know it. Varys says before telling Jon essentially that he thinks that Jon should be in the throne. Jon says, I don't want it, the throne, and I never have. And despite the fact that Varys thinks that you will rule wisely. Daenerys is my queen.
Yes, exactly. So you did a great job, fam. Good job.
I don't want it.
He doesn't want it. So I wanted to kind of start talking about that, right? Like, there's something important that happens when a person, people look to you as a leader, and you don't necessarily want that role. You don't want that power. It reminds me of someone that we have, a couple people that we have running for president right now. And so this is becoming this is the big question of everything, right? Like the power structures and who gets to play and how easily we become pretty much villains, even in trying to save other people. Like, and then there's a lot of things that come into question. So we have a little clip that I wanted to go off of. If we can go ahead and show it.
I don't want it.
I don't want it.
Never have.
What did I say would happen if you told your sister?
I don't want it, and that's what I told him.
She betrayed your trust. She killed Varys as much as I did. This is a victory for her. Now she knows what happens when people hear the truth about you. Far more people in Westeros love you than love me.
Yeah. So I guess my whole point of just showing that little clip is
I feel like that's us, by far more people love you than they love me, Fiorella, on the show. And I don't want it.
I don't want it. Well, basically here what I'm trying to show is that she knows that people don't have love for her. And because they don't have love for her, later on in the episode, she goes and becomes a warmonger, hands down.
She becomes Hillary Clinton.
Not necessarily like that she wasn't before, because she was leading an army, but to the point of killing innocent people, killing thousands and possibly millions of civilians with her dragon, and even her own people, getting them caught in the danger. Because when they rang the bells, if you don't know about Game of Thrones, it's hard to explain, but there was a moment where there was basically a surrender, and there was a bell rung that said, hey, like, that's fine, we're done. And she heard those bells, and she still went and literally burned all of the city down. And she didn't have to do that. But there was like this crazed look in her face where she had like this power, and she just went and did it. So there's a couple of things that come to play here. Like, people decide where the power goes, right? We, the people, decide who gets the power, but oftentimes we don't realize it. And Varys has always been the voice of the people, and oftentimes we don't realize that we have that power to decide where it goes. And he's saying, you may not know it, but you do. So he's kind of giving us like a little bit of wisdom, like, hey, you guys can actually stop this from happening, but it's going to take you all to do it. And I think that relates very well to politics right now, because a lot of people aren't really realizing their power, the power they hold, especially in masses, and the voice that the way they can make their voices heard. Mm-hmm. Do you have anything else?
No, I mean that's just about it. Just about it. There's nothing really, to piggyback on that. So,
all right.
Next point.
You want to go?
No. What's the second one? Anyone, even those with good intentions, is corruptible because of money and power. I mean, I don't know. How's that? We're talking about how this implies to Daenerys, right?
No, just in general. Like, in general, because yes, like Daenerys is a person that has been corrupted by power and money, more so power, because this whole time she's been fighting to get ahead, and she's felt like she was entitled to it.
She felt like it was hers.
But at the same time, she's also had to be a woman in this world where there's a lot of men that had been holding power, and she was like this weak little girl, that was forced into being married. And we saw the first episode when she was taken by her husband, and then all of a sudden, she finally gets a little bit so close to doing this, and she wants to rule justly, but then she realizes like that's not how it works. And like in her quest to do that, she's become the person she hates. And I think a lot of people, like Barack Obama, for instance, we can talk about that. He had this very idea of hope and change, and we're going to do this and blah, blah, blah. The moment he got a lot of power, he completely became the drone guy. He completely went back on his word of hope and change.
Wall Street
he was
guy
just another person that did the same exact thing of regime change wars, and and hurt people in the process. So
and I think Daenerys did the same thing. She just became the same person she hated. You talked about it, and It was terrible. Were you upset the fact that they made the two evil people women rather than two men?
Yeah, that actually kind of
like, because she became exactly who she was, and she was her whole thing was when she was out campaigning not in Westeros but in Bravos, I guess. She was like, I am Khaleesi, mother of dragons, but more importantly, I am breaker of change, freer of slaves.
Yeah,
I'm all this. You have to make me the leader because I'm all this. Don't just do this because you fear me. Do this because you love me and you know I'm going to be for the people, and I'm going to use my power and strength to make sure everything is right.
Exactly.
But we saw last night,
right, because the power consumed her. So
it did. Because we said this whole time, it was like, you kept on saying, like, let's give this to the person who doesn't want it. And John keeps on saying, I don't want it. And we always talk about this. We like, Bernie Sanders, are you going to run? Bernie Sanders was never going to run. The day he made the decision to run is he was pushed and pushed and pushed. And he was sitting at a restaurant with Jane, and a veteran came over.
This is 2016.
And, this is in 2015, I think it happened, like towards the end. And the veteran was like, thank you so much for all you've done, because he was once again pushing for all that veteran money and trying to help out. It was right around the time. But the veteran told him, said, Bernie, we need you to run. There's nobody else out there. And then Jane said, come on, Bernie, maybe you should do. And Bernie said, you know how my wife really gets to me. You know how she can persuade me. And I decided to run. But he never wanted it.
Right.
I remember there was a time when he was on CNN or Fox, and he was talking against Barack Obama's possible more austerity and taking out of money out of Social Security, out of slashing Social Security, and he was mad, and he was like, "Well, I'm kind of looking for somebody to primary him if he doesn't change his tune." Well, that person had to turn out to be him because he was the only one who could step up.
That's the thing. Like, he was the only one running on the basis of not having the title, but saying, "Okay, this is going to be all of us," and he still continues to talk about that. Like, when we went in the White House. When we get into the White House and have this power, he uses the words we. He doesn't ever say when I get in there and it's my turn or I deserve it. Like, that's why I like him as a candidate and I love him as a person, because I think he has that ability. Another thing that happened that this shows is that loyalty can often go beyond reason. So we see the Unsullied and the what is it? The Dothraki.
Oh, you're talking about the Dothraki.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Unsullied and the Dothraki, which are the barbarians.
Very loyal to her.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're barbarians. I would just say like they have a loyalty to her because she did free and lead their people into a different era. And so they have this loyalty to her, whether they can't see that now who she is has changed, and they should shift their mind because they're so loyal.
Are you kind of comparing this to kind of some neoliberals out there and stuff that like, oh, we're following this person, but this person just signed this into, well, it doesn't make a difference. Their loyalty is there. I always question. I always say, what is this? Is this like a form of sensationalism, or is it just this loyalty that's been locked in that once you start to go, you just go all the way. You go gunga din, you go gung ho. No matter what happens. Right. And a lot of the Unsullied and the Dothraki and the people who follow Khaleesi can't see beyond the loyalty because they're so loyal to her that despite what's going on, and you saw that yesterday when Jon Snow's trying to stop his men, and yet the Unsullied Grey Worm is like, nope. First of all, Grey Worm was like also hurt too, like Khaleesi. He's feeling that. So he was like, no, fuck this. Like, and you can almost see like there were orders given to them like, listen, if you see me go, just keep going. Because then fucking Grey Worm grabbed the spear, put it right through the heart, and Jon Snow was like, what? They have their fucking swords down. They're ready to give up. The bells are fucking ringing. But there goes the apeshit craziness.
And that also shows like the power of like groupthink and how like they were all like one. It took one person to put their sword down, but then it took another person to fire. Yeah. And then the whole thing just like falls apart.
They saw Grey Worm and boom. Yeah.
And the ends don't justify the means, fam. That's the thing. Like, the end for her is to have power in order to rule justly. But
she had King's Landing. It was hers. And Jon Snow was not going to get in her way. Jon Snow's like, don't want it. She had King's Landing. All the power was hers. Everything was hers. But they wanted vengeance of sorts.
But also, she has no love there. She said, and later on in the episode, she says, I only have fear.
Yeah.
So that's always a leader's choice, right? Are you going to rule with love or are you going to rule with fear? More often than not, leaders rule with fear, unfortunately, for our world. Donald Trump is one of them.
Well, I think we should rule our own people with love and just make sure that the other countries know that, hey, we have, the fear tactics that we can put into play. I don't want to say that because
that's still
It's
that's
still
still
bad,
a warmongering kind of attitude.
It is kind of warmongering attitude,
but in this world, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, right? If you don't have the power, someone else is gonna go take it. So it's again, it's like those existential questions of we can't replace one power structure with another. It doesn't work. It fails every time, which is why we can't continue to choose between the lesser of evils, because you see, it doesn't matter how evil Cersei is. Daenerys can be just as evil.
Yeah.
And if you're replacing one power structure with another power structure, ultimately you don't change the status quo. You don't break the wheel. You're not doing that. In order to break the wheel, you actually have to destroy it. Literally destroy the power structure.
Wait a second. Didn't Daenerys kind of change things in Bravos and all those areas when she went across seas? She changed things, and that was like the whole beautifulness about Khaleesi, is like you got behind her because she was really freeing people. She didn't allow slaves. She did have some controversy a little bit when she put all the slave owners up on the things, like crucified them all the way. She did that to show a point, like if you do this to the kids the way they did it, we're going to do it to you. And she did do that, but she didn't go as far as destroying the whole society, and she had uprisings against her.
Yeah, well, I don't mean like that she should destroy the whole society. I mean, the wheel is a symbolic thing of who's in power. And if she said, I'm going to break the wheel, I'm going to break these power structures instead, she's just replacing them. Yeah. So she didn't do any change. She, like, to me, that it's still on the bigger picture, it's status quo. It's still the same. She's still the only reason those people were like alive is because they agreed with her, because they followed what she said. But this is what happens when she's angry and you don't agree with her. And again, the ends don't justify the means, because at the end of the day, she still went back on her word of being a peace candidate.
Exactly. Well, that's what we said. This Jon Snow is all about policy. Khaleesi's all about power, and that was the big difference. And I think that that Jon Snow and Tyrion, the thing the thing they realized most is that fact, like, oh my God, all we did was just put the Mad King back in fucking power, right? Now, in the form of his daughter now that has a fucking dragon that can do even worse damage than the king that Jaime Lannister put through his back.
Yeah, and then we should always give power to more than one person, right? That's what happens too. The monarchy, it just shows like monarchs shouldn't rule.
Yeah, I was thinking about that shit. Why didn't they set up a council? Why didn't Tyrion and Daenerys, is his name Daenerys? Varys. Why didn't Varys and Tyrion go to Jon Snow and Khaleesi and say, let's start up a parliament? Yeah, of sorts.
Yeah, something, because it just seems like the monarchy, again, is kind of showing like the monarchy isn't the way to go. And so it's really interesting, like, that those closest are often our biggest enemies, right? Yep. Like, again, you see like, oh yeah, she's my queen, we're all fighting this together, we beat the White Walkers, we're doing this, and then all of a sudden your worst enemy is the person closest to you. Just like in the Democratic Party, progressives' worst enemy aren't the Republicans, aren't the White Walkers, but
the Democrats.
They're their own Democrats that have been, malicious and are coming against them at every turn. When they try to make things better, they just ruin it, and they continue to be these warmongers. And it's something interesting, because Bernie Sanders has this ability to convince Republicans to actually see the light, many of them. Mm-hmm. And the reason he does that is because he focuses on policy, and especially economic policy. And a lot of these people are willing to shift their mind because they're already flexible when it comes to like going where the wind blows. So, a Republican might be like, oh, I like Trump, he's a good businessman. But then if it doesn't work, they'll change their mind. The problem with the left, like the liberal left, is that they get so emotionally attached to things because they believe they're on the right side of justice. Yeah. In a lot of issues, like, oh, we need to resist, we need to do this. So because they so fervently believe it, they are unable to actually change their mind, even when they get facts that prove them wrong. So I think that's the interesting part between the dynamic of the Republicans and the Democrats, where it's like the Republicans, a lot of them are more likely to change their mind. It is that like flexibility that makes them like, flip-floppy and makes them wishy-washy. But the Democrats are so emotional about it that they won't change their mind, which is why I think Bernie needs it. Honestly, like, if I was his advisor, I wouldn't count on getting those centrist votes. I would more so count on getting the independent and the Republican votes.
Let's talk about this too, because we really need to discuss this, because this is something we want to talk about, because I've said this a long time ago. I think after 2016, And after that election, and Trump became president, a lot of us, and there's a certain podcaster out there who even said this too as well, is like, we said, forget the Republicans. We're never going to convince them to change their ideology. They're always going to be where they're at. We have to come together with the centrist Democrats or the establishment, neoliberal, whatever they're called, whatever you want to call them, and come together and find a way that we can, form unity. And I think we should have another show about this because I want to talk about unity because this whole thing, well, we need to unite. Like, unite behind fucking what? We're not going to unite behind fucking regime change. We're not going to unite behind corporate donations, okay? So what we need to unite behind is something totally different to talk about. But we concentrated, I think, on going after the establishments, trying to find some form of unity, trying to change the Democratic Party. I think there was a thought process, fam, that after this election, a lot of these establishment Democrats were going to go, you know what? We can't keep doing the same shit and hope to win. We just lost to Donald Trump. We're going to have to ixnay on the corporate donations. We might have to dial it back a little bit on the regime change. Remember, on the regime change scoreboard, even though Bush has Iraq and what else does he have? Afghanistan. He's got 2. Barack Obama has 3. Now, I still think Iraq was one of the worst things in the world, but, Barack Obama himself has Syria, Libya, and Honduras. So, I mean, I think there was this whole mentality that we're going to change. We're going to come together with some form of unity, reach a happy medium, and then go ahead and defeat the Republicans. But it's been anything but that. It's been more of a wedge, more of a drive apart. It seems like the Democrats don't want to change. They still want to back these people that don't want to change. Like you said, the loyalty thing. Right. They want to be loyal to this party and stuff.
And they think they're on the right side of justice. That's the worst part, because thinking that it makes
true virtuous.
It makes it exactly. It makes you feel like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And you're actually not.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for them to accept that. That's called cognitive dissonance. And then they have a mass of people in agreement with them, so they feel empowered to it. That's another form of tribalism and groupthink. And then ultimately what ends up happening is that these people end up manufacturing consent,
big time.
which we've seen with these polls, fam. I mean, look at this last poll that I talked about last week,
New Hampshire
Johnny.
Democratic primary?
Yeah, the
Gotcha,
New Hampshire
Johnny.
Democratic primary poll, the poll we have right here.
Yeah.
And it just shows you right there in the circle exactly the dates and how many voters. MSNBC put up a poll with 375 voters.
We can get more voters than an hour on our fucking Twitter, first of all. That's not
that
a fucking
would be a
poll.
more representative sample than that.
That's a selective poll.
And they even tell you right here, if you look at the text right here, they say, oh, the former vice president best Sanders by 36 to 19% among those aged 50 to 64, but he trails the Vermont senator by 20% to 27% among voters under the age of 50. And they leave that out unless you're reading the whole entire thing.
So it's a skew poll, and we continue to do this. And I want to piggyback, because we talked about all this stuff, because they are manufacturing consent, and it is a very form of tribalism. They don't want to walk away from it. No matter what, they got to defend their DNC Democratic tribe. And, we came to a point, fam, and, we talked about this, and Bernie Sanders talked about a 50-state solution. And that's what this is all about. That's going and talking to those Republicans, those independents and whatnot. And let me tell you something, Tulsi grabs those people too as well. And I do think that. I think that... and I put this video up almost 6 months ago when we did a show with Graham Elwood. Hey, we got a lot more in common with libertarians that are more practical than these neoliberals, these centrist Democrats. Why don't we just form a pack with these libertarians? And sure enough, you hear a lot about Rand Paul praising Tulsi in her ways, whatnot. That's the area where it's still up for grabs right now. This is very, because we're gonna be going to the DNC, and it's gonna be
California
the way it
Democratic
was,
DNC.
the California DNC in San Francisco. Hopefully, we said.
No, we're going.
We're going. All right. Well, we got one hopeful. We got one guy. We got one in the middle. Send us money so we can go. Help us out on our Patreon. But once again, it's gonna be messy again, fam. And this whole I remember walking into the auditorium part, and Kamala Harris is talking about unity. But it's like empty unity. Just unite, because we got to unite to beat Trump, because Trump is awful. That shit never works. So, anyways, I just want to kind of piggyback off that.
No, yeah, you're right. And ultimately, fam, one of the main things to talk about this is the fact that who ends up paying the price between two egos fighting against each other.
The people of King's Landing.
Right? All of these
women and
innocent
children
people,
of King's
the
Landing.
masses, everybody that has absolutely nothing to do with it. It's two egos fighting against each other. Cersei had to show off and kill Missandei. and she was, and that like also affected Daenerys, and then
that was the last straw. That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Oh yeah, like she was just like.
Can you imagine if she never cut off her head, just gave her back, and said, "Okay, what do you want to do?" That's it.
It
might have been enough, but that was the last straw. That was it, and then she knew the Commander Grey Worm. I think she felt like her loyalty and love to Grey Worm for always sticking by her, that he had to give him a taste of blood of vengeance for what happened to his girl. So. And
then ultimately, human beings are the biggest threat to themselves. That's the whole thing, because they all thought, the White Walkers are going to destroy humanity. Winter is coming. No, human beings are the ones that brought winter upon themselves, especially Daenerys. Burned the whole thing down, and that was it. That was what the prophecy was saying. That was the whole
humans
time.
And dragons.
Humans are the but like a human leading a dragon. The dragon wouldn't have done that without her. So. Yeah. It's ultimately that, and we just have to remember, like, it's kind of ironic that a lot of people love this show and are able to see this kind of situation unfold, but they can't, they just can't see it in their own lives. So it's kind of ironic.
Well, an old friend of mine. Let's get to the next spot. Did you want to do anything else on that?
No,
I'm hoping it
would
ruin it for you, whatnot. Go and see. It was probably the best episode out there. It was one of them.
To me, it was like the best episode of this season.
We've had some good episodes, some shit. It's kind of been ping ponging here and there. There's some things where we've heard the term "jump the shark" about the way they've kind of hurried things to set up a kind of scenario, and a lot of people from Game of Thrones were a little bit upset about it. Johnny, you got anything to say to add to this? Because I know we were more hyped on that Rick and Morty episode with the evil Morty, which is kind of like what's going on. If you haven't seen it, if you want to see Rick and Morty, there's a great episode too as well that does a lot with our politics.
The evil Morty, yeah.
Well, they don't know he's evil. We kind of get he's evil at the very end and stuff. But there's some great scenes and stuff. It's like they're at the Citadel and goes, "We're the rich people. We've always run the Citadel. We don't care if a Rick or a Morty sits in that chair." And they're kind of like copycatting the elites, the oligarchs. We run this place. And Morty's like, "Do you guys agree with him?" And about 75% of the people raised their hands, and Morty had him killed. So it was kind of like, oh shit, what's going on? Do we have a new leader here who's letting the power consume him? And how is he going to handle this?
Same thing.
So yeah, it's a great episode. The Citadel of Ricks.
Oh, so I can finally talk?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Finally. Okay.
Well, you know what? You've been talking out of,
So, yeah, it looks like a lot of people in MCSC do not watch Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, don't watch that.
That's really interesting.
If anything, for the politicalness of it, because really a lot of people think it's all about Dungeons and Dragons.
It's not.
It's about politics.
I wouldn't watch it if it was.
No.
That would bore the hell out of me.
What the hell is that?
I think that was someone.
Is that Slack over there doing
Yeah.
something? Shut up, Slack! Anyways, my old friend, do you have anything else to add, John? A friend of mine, really her brother's one of my best friends. We don't speak all the time, but we're still close friends. We're homies for life, and we will be. No, seriously, if I got married tomorrow, he'd probably be up there. Corey Milano, one of my close friends. His sister, I've been close with the Milano family for a while. Lynn Milano is Alyssa's mom. I love her. Tom. Alyssa just had 2 beautiful babies not too long ago. Her husband, Mr. Buyari, love that dude as well. However, since this all got started, Alyssa seems to have been gone to the side that
the dark side.
The dark side of sorts. It is disappointing. Alyssa was a Bernie supporter. Mm-hmm. Alyssa has been honored by the UN for bringing African kids water in Africa. She's done beautiful stuff like that before. And just recently, and I'm going to let you go on off this fam, because it's I have emotions here. I have feelings. Once again, I have loyalty and whatnot to my friends and my family, my Italian fam. But I've been very, very disappointed. And not only disappointing of Joe Biden, but what fam's going to talk about right now. And I didn't put it in here. Would you put on a comment yesterday? I'm going to send it over to John because I just thought it was a great, amazing way you described what Alyssa was doing. But go ahead, fam.
So Alyssa Milano is responding to the Georgia abortion law, where it's going to basically what they're trying to do is punish women for an abortion, like make it something that they can prosecute and jail you for. Yeah. And as well as a doctor, but the fact that they can do this to a woman's body is disgusting. It's ridiculous. It's backward. It's whatever it is you want to call it. And this is called the Georgia abortion law. And basically her response to this is this tweet here, which she got so much criticism for, and rightfully so. Our reproductive rights, are being erased until women have legal control over our own bodies. We cannot risk pregnancy. Join me by not having sex until we get bodily autonomy back. I'm calling for a sex strike. Pass it on. I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh because to me the problem with her stance is extremely obvious. It's hypocritical. It's obtuse. She's supporting Joe Biden as president. Joe Biden has hurt women for a very long time. He's not only hurt women, he's hurt people, especially poor people of color, which happen to be women.
Author of the crime bill.
Exactly. And she's propping him up, doing shows with him, like taking him everywhere, telling us that he's the best guy to beat Donald Trump when he, in policy, is literally pretty much just like Donald Trump, if not more conservative on foreign policy, which means he's more of a warmonger than Donald Trump, which is scary to think about, but that's the case. And when you do these things, when you think about things as in a symbolic, platitude-y way, and it's this type of feminism that's so, like, it really irritates the hell out of me because it's the latte feminism. It's the kind of feminism that these white women who have no idea what it's like to actually suffer under capitalism go and parade around with their pink hats and their t-shirts saying, oh yeah, feminism, but they have no idea what that means. It's not intersectional. And she got so much criticism for this because it gives more power to men too. She's basically saying, okay, I'm going to use my body to beg men to do something legislatively instead of focusing on the policy and how we can actually change things like in real life and not just symbolically.
Mm-hmm. And I listen, Johnny, that thing I sent you over, put that up because I want to read it. Everything that Fam just said right here. Take a look at this, Fam. Well, I mean, you wrote it, so I'm telling you to take a look at something you wrote. But
I mean,
it was last night at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Everything that you wrote, right? Everything that you talked about, right over here.
Well,
so
she also talks about how sex is. She assumes that sex is only pleasurable for men because it's like she's saying, she's just saying like, oh, like don't do this to your husband, like so it's only he who wants sex. Like lots of women want sex. Like it's just like it's ridiculous. And she also assumes that everybody is heterosexual, and she also assumes that these power dynamics are at play. And again, the whole Joe Biden thing, I just can't get past the fact that she's propping up Joe Biden. So we have one tweet here. It's okay, we'll find it later. This one's from the feminist next door. It says, please stop. This one was a good one.
Yeah.
Please stop feeding the narrative that women are providers and men are consumers of sex. Bribing men for equal rights with access to our bodies is not how feminism works. Yeah, we don't have to bribe men. What we have to do is actually have a policy to do it. Did you want to put it up?
Yeah, this is so great. I mean, I read this last night. I had to read it a couple times, Fam, because I can't write like this. Fam writes so beautifully. And it's just, I had to read it several times. I had to grab my dictionary, but if you want to read that, Fam.
No, you can read it.
To actual underprivileged women, Milano's pseudo, did I say it right? Pseudo. See, I can't even say the word. Pseudo outrage of this epitome of privileged latte feminism. It's full of symbolic gestures with zero functional policy action. You said that too yesterday. We were talking about that. I didn't want to pause real quick like this. This is just like platitude-y and making all these friggin' symbolic gestures that actually has nothing to do. And it makes a mockery of the hardship of women of colors and poor women who endure but get no accolades for this. It's not intersexual or altruistic, but selfish and ego-driven. Like, join me in showing how great I am at symbolic platitudes. I'm helping people. I'm just so brilliant for doing this. It's about them, not the people they help. And I would love you to read this last part here, Fam. But you said, further, you're still empowering men by objectifying yourself. If we want to help women, we must change the status quo, not play into it.
Yeah, 100%. And I just
over here, Fam, like that.
Pretty much sums up
my entire thought process on this. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. And it means so much. It's, once again, it's this whole form of virtue signaling. You know what I'm saying? You're not really helping anything. You're not changing any fucking policy. It's like when we go out in the streets, we tell people, listen, if you're going to go out there and march in the streets, march for something that has to relate directly to policy. Like when they march in England, I should say Germany or France, they're marching for $25 an hour. They're marching for a 30-hour work week. We're marching to change someone's behavior or just to be platitudey.
Which you're just not going to do unless there's a logical element to it. And I have one more tweet that it was pretty savage and a lot of people really liked it. But I mean, Jonathan, if you can post this one right here. Basically, she thinks that female empowerment is using the body to beg men for equal rights and simultaneously props up someone like Joe Biden. It's a privileged feminism that does nothing. This part here, social justice must be tied to economic justice. And by that, I mean, if you really want to change things for women, you focus also not just on the platitudes and the symbolism and, like Pasta said, trying to change someone's mind on the under the system, right? Because yes, I agree we live in a male patriarchy. However, in order for that to change, you also have to help women economically. And if all you're focused on are symbolic platitudes, you're not really helping women. You have to help these women who are poor, and a lot of Black women and Latino women came after her because they're like, dude, like, this does nothing for us, man. We've been suffering for a while. Like, you're just kind of coming into the game here and you're completely ignoring the very real economic issues that we have. Yeah. And that's my main issue with the kind of feminism that the liberals like Hillary Clinton and co kind of like push, because to me it's completely blind as to what our needs as women really are as a people, because we need money, we need to pay rent, we need food on the table, we need healthcare, we need education, and no amount of marching with a sign that says, you know, fuck Trump and all of this and that is going to change the legislation. Yeah. So
and you're just so, you know, it's the oh my God era, you know what I'm saying? And economic justice is not just a fight for dollars and cents in your pocket. It's the fight for resources of our planet and how we get those resources. You know, we want to have economic justice throughout because everybody needs money for, like you said, for everything you need as far as the resources. Us as a group of people, as a society together, we have to control these people because they're hogging all the resources. And when they hog all the resources, the first tool they have is to pin us against each other. You know what I'm saying? So without economic justice, there is no social justice.
And I'm not denying the existence of like I said, this system which women are still, you know, second-class citizens in much of the world, then yet United States still as far as money goes. But you have to attack also the root cause of the problem, and you can't just continue, you know, making a mockery out of people's actual financial struggles. And I think this kind of does that.
I think a lot of progressive men have stepped up to support some progressive women this last couple of years and stuff like that. You know, I think that's been great. I think there's been a lot of games the way we kind of stepped behind and stood behind, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm saying there's a lot of progressive men out there. I think there's a lot of progressive men out there, and a lot of guys I talk to is that they don't look at race and gender. They're just looking at content of character, you know, and, you know, if they can win or not. You know what I'm saying?
See, this is another part where Pasta and I can totally debate, because to me, like, you can't not look at it. You have to acknowledge it, but also then move past it. And in order to move past it, you have to acknowledge that there is a divide. But you look at the root cause of the divide. And I know Pasta has gotten into arguments too with our friend Michelle. And I would love to have a debate about this. It's in some other episode, you know, like this kind of different like issue, economic, social, and everything in between, because it's something that I think is representative of the divide in America. I think a lot of people have different views on this, and that's why our politics are so divided. So.
All right. So, go ahead. This next part.
Well, I just kind of wanted to mention that as an example of Kirsten Gillibrand, who...
Oh, my Lord.
Well, Alyssa Milano, you know, likes her. And...
Well, they're all... Let me tell you something. That's really the thing that's sad is that now Alyssa Milano is lockstep, in stride, in rhythm with the Democratic establishment, and she wasn't there. She was a Bernie supporter. She was one of us, like I said, up until just recently, a couple years ago. And I don't know how she can think that this is a good career move, because she's pushing away from all the young people out there that love her and stood behind her to go support a bunch of old geezers who won't change their way and don't want to let go of their power. And she's become a part of that. Where she was an outsider, now she's looked upon as one of the Hollywood elites. And the Joe Biden thing was such a just an awful move to make. I it's sad, because once again I love Alyssa
Johnny,
and I love everything about her. But here's Gillibrand once again. So
yeah, so she said to the mothers who have yet to be reunited with their children after being separated at the border, mothers whose children were taken by the gun violence or illness, mothers who've lost a child or children who've lost their mothers, I'm holding you in my heart today and always. This is an example of literally platitudes.
It is.
It's not telling you how I'm going to change things. It's not talking about policy. It's a nice sentiment that makes you feel good, but that's about it. And this is a prime example of what the liberal left does. Not the leftists. I'm talking about the liberals, like the centrists, these people. This is what they do. They say things that make, hope and change. Let's all feel good. Let's do this. But when it comes down to legislation, when it comes down to actually doing something to help people, they don't do it. In fact, they stab you in the back. And this is what she did 10 years ago. She said before becoming a senator in 2009, Gillibrand represented a largely Republican district, and she expressed her ideas in immigration, and she blocked certain benefits for the undocumented immigrants, and she established English as the official language, and a lot of these things, and she did also voted against immigrant rights, and a lot of these things have come back to haunt her now, and she's like, I shifted my position. So how is it okay for her to shift her position so recently, and yet Tulsi, when she was like 18, is still getting like called out because of her views that she grew up with, and she didn't push legislation against that. That's
I say
the
something
thing
too? And you said she's saying she shifted her position. That's a bunch of malarkey. What's the number one cause of immigration?
War.
Okay, intervention, war, regime change, war. Guess where Kristen Gillibrand stands on Venezuela? We did a whole fucking video on it.
Yeah, exactly.
She's for regime change. She's for supporting the opposition. She's for creating more fucking refugees. The United States is a refugee-making machine, and Kristen Gillibrand is a part of that. And what does she do? She throws out the fucking tweet with all the platitudes, my heart and bullshit. Bullshit. You're for regime change. You're for fucking creating more immigrants. So fuck off. Excuse my French. Sorry.
Jeez. Okay.
Sorry.
Really doesn't like her.
Because this shit is bullshit with Kristen Gillibrand. These Democrats, these centrists are doing the same thing they did before. Okay? They're not about policy. The only thing that matters is policy, policy, policy. Here's Kristen Gillibrand, what's the word? Virtue signaling out there. Let's hold it in my heart. Let's go to my ideals. All these latte liberals, all these entitled people, privileged people whose kids are not going to have to be really affected by the policies that won't happen if we get another Barack Obama in there. They're the ones out there causing the fucking problem. They're the one out there doing that shit.
But it's okay because they tell you that they feel sad about it, and you should then care about it too. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with. And just to take it back on the overall thing of the show, we cannot have someone in power who wants to be power. Who wants to be powerful, who wants that power, who wants to embrace it, who thinks that they're entitled to it. We can't have another Joe Biden.
I never wanted it, fam.
We need someone like Bernie Sanders or Tulsi who stepped down from power, literally, to help Bernie Sanders in 2016. Whereas Elizabeth Warren didn't do that because she didn't want to lose her political, strength. And I get it, but then that literally shows where you're going to stand in difficult times where you have to decide, okay, what's more important, me and my status or the well-being of other people? Yeah. And that's what we need to look into presidential candidates, not the clothes they wear, not how they look, if they look presidential, not if they went to an Ivy League school, but if they are actually willing to listen to the people and they are willing to stop these interventionist wars that cause so many of our issues.
Yeah, we have a cat outside. His name is Jon Snow. And we've offered him the kingdom of our house. We've bent to knee.
And he won't take it.
He won't take it. He's like, I don't want it. I just want my food out here.
Yeah.
So Jon Snow won't come into the house. He won't take it. He doesn't want it. All the Jon Snows don't want power. They just want to. They want happiness. They want policy, the proper policy for the people. They're like Varys. So,
but I think Arya actually could be the one to come into the lead because she's kind of been through the whole thing. Like she's been through the ringer. She's let that consume her, like the power for revenge, but then she's seen it and has backed off. Like when she left with the Mountain, she left him go on, and he's like, do you want to be me? And she's like, she's the thank you, and she leaves because she had
a form of realization, like, wow, like this is not just about, don't let this vengeance consume me.
Exactly, because then I'm gonna be Daenerys or I'm gonna be you, and I'm gonna die, and
then she saw more of that. So I mean, we have
I
one
think she's
episode
out.
left. It's
One
next
episode
week.
left.
Any predictions, fam?
I think Arya is the what is it the no, she's they had the prophecy where there was like a horse,
White horse, and
that
I think
was it.
Daenerys saw it in season 3 in a dream when she was talking
season
to
2,
Aquaman.
I think, yeah.
Was it season 2 or 3? Which
Season
one?
2.
Season 2 or 3. She was like, she had a
Aquaman.
prophecy. She went and she talked to
Khal
somebody.
Drogo.
He says Drago, and he said we'll meet again at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Arya might do the job. I think Arya's going to do
do
it. But I think that Jon Snow will rule. I think Arya will either die in the process.
I hope it's a woman.
Well, no. Well, I think Sansa will have some. Sansa will have some power. In the north, and when it comes to Jon, when Jon Snow is the leader, everybody has a say. Everybody, he listens. He's gonna be open and do what's best for the people.
Right.
So
I don't think one person should do it. Maybe it should be like a commune of people.
We talked about this. They should set up a parliament in Westeros. Now is the time. And what they should do is tear down that fucking wall that they have. Right, they already tore down a piece of it. Let's tear
symbolic.
it down.
Let's tear down the
there's
wall.
no more White Walkers right now. They're done. It's not really about. They told you it was keeping invaders in from the north to the south, but we kind of learned later it was probably to stop the White Walkers. Who knows? Tear down the wall.
Tear down the wall.
Jon Snow should tear
Build
down
bridges.
the wall, and Jon Snow and Sansa will tear down that wall, build bridges. And here's the thing too. What about the dragon though?
I think.
How do you stop the dragon?
Targaryen can stop the dragon. Jon Snow,
maybe
it's a Targaryen.
How about this?
Aemon.
So we're saying that that Khaleesi controls the dragon. So she went apeshit crazy, killed everything. We said that Jon Snow is a Targaryen, Aegon Targaryen, and maybe he has a chance to control the dragon. Is there anybody else who can control the dragon? Because I have a theory.
I don't know.
How about Bram? Remember, Bram can get into creatures and control them. We haven't done this for a while. He got into eagles. He can go into animals and control them. I think he goes into the dragon.
Interesting.
And I've been waiting there for that a long time. I think he goes into the dragon and he controls the dragon and kind of turns the dragon. And I don't know. Maybe I think Jon Snow kills the dragon because he doesn't think that anybody could, who knows? There's so much that could happen.
I don't know about
the last that last episode, fam. You want me to give you music out so you can tell the people there's a Is that it, fam, for today?
That is, fam, for today.
We got to go see Tulsi tonight, right?
We're going to go see Tulsi. She's going to be in Santa Monica, so we're going to go say hi to Tulsi and hang out with Tulsi.
Yeah, and we're talking about, you go back and kind of piggyback on those people talking about, like, we can get Republicans, like Bernie Sanders can, but this woman can get them a lot. She gets the libertarians that are done with Trump whatsoever. Libertarians are done with Donald Trump. Put it that way. Libertarians don't like Donald Trump, most of them now. They're pissed off. The non-interventionist Donald Trump, no, that never happened. He wants his own wars. Venezuela's now. We're looking at Iran. You got Cuba on the list. You got Haiti on the list. There's a lot of shit that's going on. Him putting Bolton in power, Lord Bolton, Ramsey Bolton, him putting Bolton in power was the worst thing he could ever done in promoting Pompeo. He just gave himself, he gave the left, I guess we should say, an opportunity, an alley to really pick this up. And I think Tulsi Gabbard is really filling in that void, grabbing a lot of those libertarians. And that's why we say it's so important for Bernie and Tulsi hopefully to one day work together. Hopefully one day one of them will bend the knee to each other.
Agreed. All right, fam, we're going to go out.
Yes.
Thanks, guys, for watching. Please like, share, subscribe on YouTube.
Thank you.
On the Combo Couch and also MCSC Network.
We have a Twitter.
We will be back. Yes, and we also have a Twitter.
An Instagrizzy.
An Instagrizzy. And we will be back. No one calls it that. And we'll be back on Tuesday. Yes, tomorrow. That is Tuesday. Yes. So thanks for watching, guys. Convo out.
Convo out.
Convo out.
That was my invitation to you.
That's not how I sound.
All right.
That's rude.
Okay.